get the body-worn camera and watch the video. And it's literally, I would have killed him if I had to. If I had to, you know? And then then goes on for the next 2 minutes talking about protecting himself.
Working as a public defender, have you ever come across one of those cases where you fully believe your client to be innocent and they still end up going to jail? Not for lack of trying on your part, because you hear about those cases, right? There was one I was reading about the other day where a man convicted of murder finally got out after like 30 years.
Yeah.
And those are way too common.
Yeah, those are way too common. You know, I've seen a lot of cases. It's hard sometimes to look at a case that's filed and go, wow, that person's 100% innocent, right?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, you're reading, statements that a police officer took, and wrote down what other people said for the most part. So even when you talk to these people yourself with an investigator or whatever, you're getting part of the story. So innocent is, that's a high thing. That's almost like reverse proving someone 100% did it, right? And so there's usually some facts that we're like, oh, maybe that happened. But the point is that the DA has to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so that's why there's a lot of not guilties, or they've been getting a lot of not guilties, is they're not meeting that burden. And that's, you have to be honest about that. And what I see, this is one example, happened last summer. Had this case, and this, 25-year-old man was a roommate. Him and his roommate got into an argument over something really silly. His roommate was like, you need to leave the house. It's more of that guy's house, or whatever. And my client was like, okay, and he's in his room, cleaning up stuff, but he's taking, a while. And so the victim is strolling back and forth, and he's like holding a chain or something and kind of yelling at him, get moving, get the F out of my house, that kind of stuff. And, then at some point, the victim comes at my client and tackles him, punches him in the face. My client grabs a knife and stabs him as he's like, it sounds bad because it's in the back, but it's like he's on top of him type of thing. And he stabs him, and they continue to wrestle on the ground, and my client's like, dude, you're bleeding pretty bad. And the guy like gets up and leaves. My client leaves the house too and goes over to the neighbors and calls the police. And they talk to the victim, and the victim says, I don't know what happened. All I can say is that I was really drunk and I went at him. That's all I remember. He was that drunk. My client was sober and was like, yeah, he was drunk and he attacked me. And during the interview with the police, he said that I would have killed him. And so they were like, attempted murder. And so, police, that's what they wrote, attempted murder, that's what he's charged with. And that's what it says in the report. I would have killed him. So there's his, trying to prove his state of mind, that his goal was to kill him. And so I get the body-worn camera and watch the video. And it's literally, I would have killed him if I had to. I had to, And then then goes on for the next 2 minutes talking about protecting himself. So at the preliminary hearing, I got all the charges dropped except for assault with a deadly weapon for some reason. It didn't really make any sense logically to me, but
they still charged him with that.
Yeah, and so at that point, after I play the video in the hearing and the DA sees it, and that's all they have, you would kind of suspect, all right, we're not going to go further with this. And then comes to trial confirmation, like 3 weeks, they file the assault charge because that's all we were able to get to hold. 3 weeks later, guy's still in jail. My client's confused, like what's going on. And 3 weeks later, it's trial confirmation, and I asked the prosecutor, hey, have you looked at this? Like, 'cause someone else did the preliminary hearing. That's the other problem with the DA's office is, they keep transferring files over, so no one's has ownership of it. It's like, have you looked at this? Did you read the preliminary hearing? Did you watch the video? And prosecutors sort of joke, oh, I'll do it, the weekend before trial. I was like, no, dude, like, this dude's in jail. Look at it. And, to his credit, he did look at it and goes, oh, I don't think I can prove that. I'll probably dismiss it, but I got to call the victim. I'm like, okay. And then like another couple weeks go by, and
Your client is still in jail
Yeah.
during this time.
another couple weeks go by, and we called the victim. Weren't able to get a hold of the victim. So that tells you we're at like 2 months into this. They haven't even talked to the victim in this case. And this is all they have, is that his statement saying he was drunk and then he went at him. Okay. But we got a hold of his mom. And his mom says that he might remember something now. Okay. So then another week goes by. Oh, we brought him in and we talked to him, and he doesn't remember anything else. He just said he was just drunk. Same thing as we said in the police report. Okay. Still don't dismiss it. The next Friday is trial assignment, where the trial is literally starting on Monday. And Maggie Fleming comes down and tells the court, "Oh, we unfortunately have to dismiss this because we lost a witness." And I was like, you didn't lose a witness. You talked to him last week. That's the first time you talked to him, which is unbelievable. As well, what about victim services? Guy got stabbed in the back. If they really thought they did this, but anyway, says they lost him. You didn't lose him. And then, I explained this guy's been in jail for 81 days. He spent for protecting himself. That's the only thing.
81 days for self-defense.
Yes, because they weren't able to make a decision, and they just didn't care to make a decision. It seemed like, and then lied to the court that they lost their witness, and then I pointed that out. And then they're like, oh, yeah, well, we did talk to him, but we do have the witness, but, we're looking for additional information. We were told that there's additional information. I was like, well, still a couple weeks ago. And you guys confirmed for trial. You guys said you're ready to go to trial. And that is not something that's irregular.
That's pretty common.
It's common. It's like...
That's not what you want to hear.
No. That's
not a comforting feeling.
It's stuff like that. It was just so frustrating. And then, when they talk about, like, oh, well, we were just trying to investigate more. Is their excuse? You didn't even try to call the victim for 2 months. And then when I pointed out, you guys don't have a case, you reluctantly do. I mean, thank you. And then agree with me, but then still, drag it out to the last possible second and then, what does that tell? There's so many times that calendar, that trial assignment where they decide where trials go, there's so many dismissals. So what does that, and there's a bunch of defendants sitting there and they're like, what does that tell you? If we just wait, we're going to get a better deal at the end.
What does that say to you as somebody in that field? Does that show incompetence or negligence or just a lack of desire to release cases they know they can't stand on?
I think that's the main thing, is decisiveness. I think that office runs in a manner that is, we don't want to be the accountable person, which is ridiculous because that's what a DA does. What a DA should be doing they're the gatekeeper. They should be deciding stuff right off the bat, saving police resources, saving taxpayer money.
Accountable in the terms that they don't want to let the wrong guy go.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand that, sometimes stuff like that happens. And then, it comes back on you. Right. But if you don't have the evidence, you just say that we don't have the evidence. Like, that's your duty. You don't drag a case on, and not investigate. There's some cases where you might not have it beyond a reasonable doubt, but you need to keep someone off the street, like a very serious, dangerous person. And then you spend that time actively investigating. You don't wait, you get on it. Those are situations, but what I see is a lack of decisiveness. There's the strategy for cases is basically charge as much as we can, dismiss everything except for one charge, and we'll call that charge open, which means that they're not offering probation. They're going to argue some prison term. Most of the time they know that, under the law, there's factors. The rules of court say this is how you get probation. And if they're eligible, they're eligible, And so, but just out of having that stance, not saying we offer probation, wait for the judge to be like, okay, if pleads open, I'll indicate as a sentence there'll be probation. So why do that? Well, if something goes wrong, they can go, whoa, we already should go to prison. The judge is the one that gave him probation. So I think it's not wanting to be accountable. And I see that with juries. So they lose a jury trial and they learn nothing from it because they're like, oh, that was a bad jury. Or the judge gave us bad decisions. No, you just didn't have the case. So evaluate your case, and don't wait until the weekend before.
That's not very comforting hearing that. I'll be honest. That kind of ties into the standard trope of the system's a little broken.
No, it's extremely. That's why, going into this, I know that this isn't something I'm going to be able to turn around overnight. It's going to take time. And that's why I'm starting with that foundation of getting some technology in there, reorganizing positions, so we can actually build an office that's modern. And, a DA represents the people, and they represent the defendant as well. Yes, they're prosecuting, but the paramount goal for a DA is to do what's best in societal interest. That's the goal. Seek the truth, get justice. How do we prevent this person from engaging this criminal behavior in the future? What's going to be the strategy? What led to this? Some people, you're not going to, be able to offer therapy and, drug program and, they're going to get better. There's just, some people it's not, but we got to try where we can, and we got to evaluate people individually. It has to be one by one because the needs of society and the needs of particular folks, defendants, isn't something that you can just, take a sledgehammer to. It's using a scalpel and going, okay, this is the best way, the best chance we have of getting this person out of the system. Instead of just going, like an assembly line of cases. And that's where you end up with those situations where there's no ownership and you have a person that just spent 81 days in jail for protecting themselves.
Yeah, that's wrong. I mean, I'm a firm believer, for better or worse, because you could make the argument that it's better to let 5 criminals go than lock up one innocent person.
Yeah, I don't think we fortunately don't have to ever make that decision.
Yeah,
it should be that way.
But that's such a problem. You hear about innocent people just getting decades for crimes that they didn't commit, for evidence that was already out there and just never looked at until decades later. I mean, it's far too common.
Yeah, no, and when I see those, what sometimes is one of the most insanely impressive things, I guess I'd say, is, you see those stories and the people get out and they're like, not everyone, but a lot of them don't have like a grudge.
Which is surprising.
I
would be ready to.
I know.
I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I'd be so pissed. You have your life taken away. If you have kids, you missed all their birthdays, all that stuff.
I mean, your life is essentially, like you said, it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
You're put into a cage.
Yeah. And if, you were truly, convicted on lies or false evidence or whatever, and that's how they got you there, it's, how do you not have some just like rage about that? So, when I see those people that are like, just happy that I'm out, it's like, what? It's impressive. And, that's the other thing, when you talk about being a prosecutor is, there should never be that situation. Being a prosecutor isn't about winning. It's about doing the right thing.
It's about putting away the actual criminals.
Right. It's seeking justice and the truth. That's it, and you present the truth. And so if you're not presenting the truth, and, you have a witness that you think is, you don't believe in, and you put them on there just for the goal of, it's not, the jury might believe him. Well, if you don't believe him, that's probably giving you a pretty good signal if you've been doing this long enough. So, so I think that kind of ties back into some of the campaign stuff when I see, attacks, lies, misrepresentations made by people that are prosecutors attacking me. I'm like, well, what does that say about your character as a prosecutor? Can we trust you to be a prosecutor if, I know it's a little bit of different arena, but at the end of the day, you're doing the same kind of stuff. to win. And that seems to be the drive, right? And that shouldn't be the drive ever in the courtroom.
And the fear is then that it could translate into the courtroom.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I kind of see it. I think we want people that understand that the job isn't about convictions and getting long sentences. It's about doing the right thing. And, sometimes that's giving a person a second chance. Sometimes that is, I've sent a person to prison for 50 years to life, and I wasn't like, clapping or anything. I just was like, that's what needed to happen here. That person, I don't see being someone that we would want around in our community at all. And so, they're gonna have to wait 50 years to have a shot at parole. And, and that's what needed to happen in that case. So it's treating each case relative to what the seriousness is of it, as well as treating each case in a manner that you think you might be able to achieve justice for the victims and justice for society. And sometimes that means giving somebody a second chance in certain cases, and sometimes it doesn't.